All right, folks, next chapter in 2020, how to build a computer. All right, so I have laid out quite a few of my graphics cards. In this video, we're going to basically talk about the basics of those cards, all right? I may make a more advanced video, but for now, we're just going to talk different generations of the graphics cards, at least that I have, talking about which ones, are still useful 2020. We'll talk about, all these have different fan types, as you can see, the different connectors. We're going to talk about how to power those up. Then we'll get into looking at the motherboard and where those get connected. So if this was advanced class, I would probably talk about what to do with both these PCI Express slots. In this case, we are only going to talk about one. All right, so getting started. This is a GTX 750, and it's got some of the more basic connectors on there. HDMI, VGA. Nobody, really uses VGA these days. And then you've got DVI. So there's different versions of DVI, DVI and DVI dual. And but this graphics card, is it still useful in 2020? Not really for gaming. We'll help you out if you buy, let's say, an i3-9100F, an i5-9400F, something that doesn't already have integrated graphics. This will give you a slight boost over that. So on top of that, if you bought a i3-9100 or an i5-9400, this would also give you a very slight boost in your graphics. Is it good for gaming? Not really much better than having the CPU itself. Now, benefits of a card like this, there is no GPU connector, okay? So what I mean by that, if we look at our strand of cables over here, these are GPU connectors, and you'll see them in either a configuration of 6, 8, 6 plus 8, and for those that really have, a specialized graphics card from back in the day, and I say back in the day, the 980 Ti had 2 8s. I can't think of another graphics card that has 2 of those. So since this one does not have that, let's look at the next card that actually does. So there you go. This one has 8. And with that, you would basically take that connector, if I can find it again. You would take on this one the 2 and the 6 to make 8, and that would power your graphics card. Okay, so this guy gets up to 75 watts of power off of the PCI Express connector right there. Okay, and basically the only connection you would make to the motherboard is you would snap this in. All right, so that is all that would connect to it. Now this guy, you would connect this here, and then we would go in and run our power cable. This comes from the PSU, and that would the 6 and the 2, or if you have another power connector that has these set up differently. Basically, you're going to use 8 pins off of your GPU connector from your power supply to power that up. All right. So other things about the graphics cards as we move down. Now, most of these, let's say up to this point, have less than 8 gigs of video RAM. Okay. From this point on, they have at least 8. Now, this guy has, I believe, 1 or 2, all right? And that's going to affect you in a lot of games, your ability to really display higher resolution. And you will see some warnings in games, like let's check, say, the new Warzone Call of Duty game. I've been playing the beta for that. there will come a certain point where you mess with this 3D resolution slider that it'll give you a warning that it's not going to work. So having more video RAM if you're going to do gaming is useful from that aspect. So this guy has 4 gigs, this has 6, and these should all be 8. And obviously if we go higher, and we'll get to that point when we talk about some of the better NVIDIA cards out there, there is 11 gigs, and I'm not sure there's anything higher than 11 gigs, but that is that. All right, so you see the different fans. So we see a single fan there, dual fan there, another single fan, dual. This guy here, which could be rather noisy, and then 3 fans here. All right, so with the fans, these guys have 3 fans: single, dual, single, dual, single. I don't know if this is a true statement, but I would imagine that with redundancy, losing one of these fans or having one not performing as well as the others, you're probably going to be in okay shape. This fan goes out, you're going to have to replace it. And these guys get kind of warm. And the same with the other single fans. If your fan's not working, that's a bad thing. Now with these kind of fans, also make sure you don't put any cables when you're doing your build, that your cables are not hitting your fan, because those fan blades will stop at the slightest touch of any other object. All right, so let's get back into connectors. So, we talked about what's on there: HDMI, VGA, DVI. The other one is the display port. There's an example there. Here's an HDMI. And then this guy has, really, in my opinion, the best selection for most people, having DisplayPort, HDMI, and dual DVI. Now, as we go up, you will see the newest video cards. They pretty much dropped having dual DVI. So you're going to see only HDMI and DisplayPort. And that is kind of important for buying a monitor. You want to make sure that if your monitor can only allow you, say, 144 hertz on DisplayPort, or if it will do it on HDMI, knowing what your graphics card's capable of. Now, if you happen to have a situation like we do, where one of our monitors only supports 144 hertz on dual DVI, then you'll want to make sure that that graphics card has that and that it will support it. So this is a GTX 1070. We have a 1080 here as well, and that one also has this kind of setup. So that works good with the monitor that it's paired with. Now, so talking about generations of graphics cards, I don't have all of my graphics cards here, and I don't have all the generations of stuff. But all right, so we're going to jump around here. I know I have these in order, but 7 series cards, or 700 series cards. This 750, like I said, not very good for gaming. Decent for desktop, and for supporting a processor that ends in an F, meaning that it needs a graphics card. But there are some 700 series cards that are still quite capable. As you go up, the 760 is not much better than this, but the 770 is still a decent card. 780 and the 780 Ti, you can get pretty good 1080p gaming. So if you can pick up one of those used for a decent price, and usually on eBay is where you're going to find those, you're talking around the $700, around the $100 mark for the 780. And whatever reason, the 780 Ti is still commanding quite a bit of money. I believe $125, $150 for those. Now, we don't have it here, but before we get to the 10s, we would have the 900 series. and that would consist of GTX 950, which we used to have. That one does require a GPU connector. And then you go up from there, 960, 970, 980, 980 Ti. Now, 980 Ti is still a great gaming graphics card. If I remember correctly, it performs really close to this GTX 1070. So they still, for whatever reason, want a lot of money for that one used. You're talking, I'm thinking at least $150 for one of those. But you will get good 1080 high frame rate with that graphics card. All right, so moving on to your 1000s. You've got these start at the was it the GT 1030, GTX 1050, 1050 Ti, 1060, 1070, which this one is, 1080, and then the 1080 Ti. Okay, 1080 Ti is still a monster graphics card. I think it's still ranked top 10 card. Still very capable for 2020. This 1070 is still a really great card, comparative in performance to the GTX 1660 Ti next to it. Now, I left off, there's a GTX 1070 Ti. So a lot of great cards here. If you need a graphics card that does not have a GPU connector, there is the 1050 and the 1050 Ti. If you have a small form factor, you might want to look at the GT 1030. But yeah, so the 1050 Ti, still decent card for gaming, not not spectacular, but if that is all you can afford and you don't have GPU connectors, all right, in case you forgot what those are, GPU connectors, you may want to consider that. So next, we're going to start talking about RTX and then the GTX 1600 series. So this is the GTX 1660 Ti, great graphics card. There's a GTX 1660, GTX 1660 Super, and all of those get it done pretty decently for gaming. Really good frame rates for 1080. Some decent 1440, but mainly a 1080 card. All right, moving down. Before we get to the RTX, AMD 5700. There's the 5500 there, and there's also a 5600, which we do not have. Not much, difference. Really, there's a huge difference, between these, but the 5600 of that one or that one, not big enough gap that I decided I wanted to have one for the channel. So we have basically the extreme, the 5500 and the 5700. Now, 5700 XT, great graphics card, somewhere in the top 20, I think. It does have capability of doing 1440p, some 4K capability with lower quality settings, and overall a great card for the money, good value. The 5500, not honestly that impressed with it. It is good for 1080p, not that great for 1440p. All right, and I'm sure the 5600 is probably decent for 1440, where it's not good for 4K at all. Now, let's talk RTX. All right, so the RTX 2060, there's the RTX 2060 Super. And let's just talk about the order of these, okay? So RTX 2060, 2060 Super, 2070, 2070 Super, 2080, 2080 Super, and the 2080 Ti. So that's the order, basically, of performance. Now, a 26 Super and a 2070 are performance-wise almost the same. The 2070 Super and a 2080 performance basically the same. All right, so keep that in mind if you were out shopping. Price-wise, they're going to be similar in price if you can find them, or check on eBay for the used stuff. I happened to get my 2070 at a really good price, where I paid full price for the 2070 Super, And, you know, with the benchmarks, there is a slight difference if you use user benchmark of about 10% jumping from this one to that one. And you can see there is some size difference there between those two, okay? So I'm not sure what all that what the reason for that is. It almost looks like the coolers in there are actually taller, but I could be wrong. So, did you get anything out of this? Hopefully you did. All right. So we talked a little bit how these guys get connected. Other things, you know, want to talk about drivers. Any one of these cards, I can Google GTX 750 driver and find a link to get the driver for it. Sometimes these things get automatically recognized by your computer, and it will put the drivers on for you. Sometimes it takes a little while as it's downloading it, but no problem going NVIDIA site getting it. AMD, same thing. RX 5700 drivers, boom. You'll find the link and be good to go there, okay? So we talked about the different connectors, talked a little bit about the different RAM. And so there are games out there that, you know, even with 8 gigs, that it goes, oh, you don't have enough VRAM, right? So one day it would be nice to get a 11 gig one just so I can run a higher resolution. And I would assume, I say higher resolution, a higher quality of the resolution. One day, you know, when we get to 8K, 8 gigs definitely is not going to cut that, because these barely cut 4K. All right, so other things for you guys, if you really want to know, you know, what's a good graphics card, know your end state, where you want to go. All right, that's probably the most important thing. All right, folks, so we are going to look at graphics cards in this chapter of 2020, how to build a computer. So this is going to be basically the basics of it, right? Hopefully from this, you'll get an idea what to look for when selecting your graphics card. Now, there are a lot of things to look at, and we'll talk about quite a few of them. Some of those may or may not matter to you, but, you know, if you are upgrading a computer, this may not be the best video for you. There's a lot of things to look at. One being your power supply, the next being your motherboard, the next being the actual case, if you're even able to get these graphics cards in there. So, all right, let's talk size. All right, so you see these graphics cards here. They are of different lengths. The RTXs, the 2070 Super is a little longer than 2070. At least this one, and they're both made by Gigabyte. The RX 5700 is a little, not quite as long as the 2070 is, and GTX 1070 is a little shorter, right? So these are all different lengths. Now, if you've got, if you're building a brand new computer and you have a full tower, you're not going to have any problem getting one of these in here, right? If you buy a mid tower, most likely, depending on which one it is, you should not have any problem getting these graphics cards in here. Now, when you go looking at mini towers, that's another story. One of these cards may not fit depending on the type you buy. Now, the case might look long enough, but they may have some structural component in there that's going to stop you from putting your graphics card in there. So just be careful of the case. And to be honest with you, I would say decide what CPU you want, decide what graphics card, figure out a motherboard that's going to work with that, okay? Figure out what connectors you have on your motherboard. Then go figure out the case that is going to work with that, because we're getting a little sidetracked here, but cases can have different USB 3.0s on the front of them. Some will have 4, some will have 1, some will have 2. And your different connectors that are on here, you may need 2 of these, but yeah. So just be careful of that, all right? So power supply is another big thing, and we'll talk about that next. All right, so power supplies. All of these have different wattages that they need. When you talk overall system power needs, graphics card definitely comes into play there. CPUs, another story. Make sure you're using your power supply calculators online, or if you can at least kind of figure it out on your own. Always make sure you add at least 100 watts so you have some kind of buffer. So the worst thing that can happen to you when you're gaming, playing a game, shit's getting more intense. Next thing you know, boom, black screen, computer reboots. A lot of times, if not all the time, that means that your power supply basically is not adequate. All right, your computer has decided that you're drawing too much power, whatever reason. All right, this is beyond my knowledge. That sucker reboots on its own, and you end up here having to start your game over, or totally clueless what in the heck went wrong. You think something's wrong with your computer. So good chance that you sized your power supply wrong based on your graphics card's needs and as well as your computer. So what can happen, honestly, you could size your computer for something like this. This will work in a 400 watt system, okay? These guys, I believe every one of them is at least rated for 500 to a 550. I'm pretty sure this one's 550, or it was the XT. Maybe even 600, okay? And depending on how many other peripherals you have, you may realize that, hey, I'm actually sucking up more juice than I thought I was. So not a bad idea. Find a good PSU calculator, and hopefully that will help you out. All right, so graphics cards that are still useful, 2020. I'd say this is bottom of the barrel here, 750. Desktop capability. Now on the other end of this, which we don't have, somewhere past my RTX 2070 Super, would be the RTX 2080 Ti. That thing can do anything. It can do gaming. It can do desktop stuff. It could do CAD, workstation related stuff, okay? So that card has all that capability. As you move down, you lose some of that capability, all right? Gaming is not as good, all right? Desktop capability, strong all the way across the board. Workstation capability drops off, okay? So a lot of advantages to spending more on a graphics card, and you just need to know, what your end state is, okay? So that's the next topic, end state. Now, if I want to build a computer that's going to run 4K gaming on a top tier game, 60 FPS, none of this stuff in front of you is going to get it done, okay? If we're talking ultra settings. If we're talking low settings, we could probably get it done over here, okay? Now, could an RTX 2080 Ti do ultra settings? I don't know because I don't have one, but you can find that out from YouTube, right? People put up videos that show stuff that's capable. I know I do a lot of that myself for everybody. It's kind of I don't want to say an easy way for me to get some views, but people can, see basically what this hardware is capable of doing with a certain game. So knowing your end state, what you want to achieve, if it's, 4K, 60 frames per second, you're going to have to spend a ton of money. All right, you may need an i7 9700K, a Ryzen 7 3800X, or a Ryzen 9, whatever it may be to achieve that. Now, if you want to run, higher end video editing and rendering and let's say animation and CAD, once again, you probably need to be on this higher level of graphics card, because everything I have seen, and I run my own 4K video tests, is these cards get better. That time that it takes to render those videos gets less. Okay, so it's a combination of the graphics card, and there isn't a CPU here, but there would be a CPU in that spot. Those two things seem to matter the most. RAM, maybe third or fourth, along with a solid state drive being in there. Those things can make a difference in how long it takes to do video editing. Now, if you're just going to do mainly desktop stuff, Word, Excel, surfing the internet, any of this, lower end stuff is quite capable. But you got to know your end state. If you don't know your end state, then you better ask somebody for some help, right? In summary, so know your end state. What game do you want to run? Is it Fortnite? Do I want to run 4K 60 FPS? Do I want to do 1440p? Do I want to do 1080 Ti, or 1080p 120 FPS? Once you know that, then you can start looking at some different graphics cards. Search on YouTube for testing game FPS. Put in the graphics card you want with the CPU. Good chance you'll find a video or one that's a close processor or a graphics card that's either above or below that will match what you want. See the capability. If that doesn't meet your capability, then you're going to have to probably bump up the graphics card because the graphics card is really going to do a lot more for your overall FPS, more than jumping from one CPU to the next. All right, so once you determine that, what your graphics card is, figure out your CPU, decide on a motherboard, make sure all this stuff fits inside of a case, all right? From there, determine all your peripherals, figure out how much power you need, okay? Give yourself a buffer of at least 100 watts. 200 watts isn't bad, especially if you want to upgrade later. And hey, that's going to do it for this video, folks. Hopefully got something out of it. Thanks for checking it out. Please like,